Hello, my name is Lee Graves Wolf, and I'm an assistant professor in educational development with UCD Teaching and Learning. And this is the Research into Teaching and Learning Getting Published workshop. This is an extension of the Getting Started workshop. We'll do a little bit of review and then focus on additional ways to work and publish in the scholarship of teaching and learning. This workshop is building on a prior understanding of research into teaching and learning scholarship and will provide insights into publication formats and outlets. Additionally, it will facilitate engagement in local and larger networks of educational researchers for peer review and support. On completion of this workshop, one should be able to assess a range of publications in order to target local outlets, practitioner conferences, and/or a specific journal or other type of publication. Reflect and make initial plans for the publication of a scholarship of teaching and learning project. We'll start with a quick review of research into teaching. We'll talk about types of scholarship of teaching and learning publications, publication outlets, evaluating publication quality, and tips and resources. Research into teaching can be designated as an educational or pedagogical research. You may also have seen or heard the term scholarship of teaching and learning being used. SoTL is a term that includes the activity of researching into teaching, but also has a wider context and understanding. All of the slides that I'll be sharing here have embedded hyperlinks. So if you see an underline or images, many of these resources go out to the resources I'm discussing. So make sure to check the annotations for a link to the slideshow so that you can have more information. This is the Getting Published website on our Teaching and Learning Resources page. Lots of resources here that reinforce this material and have additional resources there for you. So why scholarship of teaching and learning? One really important thing to remember is that the scholarship of teaching and learning is embedded into the development framework for faculty. So as you're moving through promotion and tenure, it is something you'll want to keep in mind and do, as it is something that you'll have to include in that portfolio. Now, we can sometimes feel like it's a chicken or egg endeavor. Does the research come first? Does the writing come first? Where do we start with researching, teaching, and learning? Two research methodology approaches that help with this chicken and egg are design-based research and action research. They're both design approaches to research that honor the messiness of educational context and the iterativeness of teaching and learning. You may have an assignment or a class activity that you have trialed or piloted, and you want to run that, reflect on it, and then do it again and improve. Design-based research and action research give two nice frameworks and approaches for looking at that. And the resources on screen are two great books to bookmark on that. And we have full text access to these via the library. A couple more books for your virtual backpack. These were shared in the earlier workshop. Just some foundational texts that will help with thinking about a lot of the big concepts when it comes to doing social sciences research and SoTL research. There's a great roadmap that Utrecht University has put out for the scholarship of teaching and learning. If you are new and really want a step-by-step sort of guided journey through this, even though we know nothing is truly linear, they do a nice job in trying to streamline the process and provide 8 steps of thinking through organizing your teaching and how that impacts student learning and how you can research and look at that. So this is a great resource to follow. Always, we have to think about ethical considerations when doing research with students. Now, there are ways to talk about our teaching and learning that don't involve traditional, what we might think of as experiments or experimenting with students. And there are ways that we can reflect on our practice and look at documents and things without the human subject side of things. But inevitably, anytime we're looking at our teaching and learning, human subjects are involved. So it's really important to go through the ethics process to either have your application determined to be exempt from ethical approval, or you may have to go through full ethical process. Ethics is very, very open to helping and talking through any of the concerns or questions you may have in this process, but it's definitely something to keep at the forefront as you're endeavoring on this journey. So let's take a look at different types of publications in the scholarship of teaching and learning sphere. There are journal articles, which include empirical research. You can do book reviews, opinions and commentary pieces, short reports, case studies, and systematic literature reviews. So if taking on a big piece of empirical research thing that feels very overwhelming, you could think about doing a book review, maybe about a topic that you're very interested in your discipline. There are small steps that you can take to getting really involved more deeply in scholarship of teaching and learning in your discipline. You could do a conference presentation, you could do a book chapter, which could be empirical or explanatory. You could write a book. You could create blog posts for maybe an organization that you're a part of, or doing art, video, multimodal type sharing of your scholarship. Beyond traditional quote-unquote print, there are things like art exhibitions, as I mentioned, videos, and books. I'm going to run you through a couple examples here. The first is the Belonging Art Project, which was created here by some fantastic faculty members across the university, and they did an exhibition in collaboration with the Museum of Literature in City Center, and it was a beautiful exhibition that's been taken around now beyond Mali and has been here on campus, and it's a way, one way of representing scholarship. Another, if you're in a visual, audio, video type scholar, or even if you're not and you want to venture into new territories, there's a new journal, which is a video journal of education and pedagogy, which accepts video submissions. It's an open access journal as well, which is always important, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Another thing is to combine some of your interests, and I love to share this example from Dr. Baranda Montgomery, who is a biologist, I believe, by training, but has taken a very deep interest in mentoring. And she uses her knowledge of biology and plants and uses those metaphors and analogies in mentoring students. And she's written this beautiful book called Lessons from Plants. And so there's ways of taking your own passions and interests and crossing them with teaching and learning topics. Next, let's move to publication outlets. Depending on your confidence with the strength of your research, you may decide to start with a non-impact factor conference or journal or a web page showcase. We're always looking, UCD Teaching and Learning are regularly looking for showcases of innovations in teaching and learning for sharing on our webpage. So you could email us, and we have a nice template for a case study that you can share. So if you just want to start to get your feet wet, that's one way of starting. Another thing, always keep an eye out for calls for innovation or grants. We have a small one running right now through the Hybrid E project, and this is available. I'll link out to it on the website, but if this opportunity has passed, there's always ways of looking for small ways to support your teaching and learning that can turn into larger and even lifelong inquiries. Some of the large. Q1 SoTL journals are college teaching, innovation, teaching in higher education, innovative higher education. You see the list here on the screen. These all link out to some of the cross-disciplinary journals that are out there. And there are hundreds of more that might be very specific to your discipline and more targeted towards the type of research that you're doing. So start to seek these out, bookmark them, look at them regularly to see what's being published in your area in particular. Additionally, you can volunteer to be a reviewer. As a journal editor myself, we're always looking for peer reviewers, and it's a way of again, looking at that sort of scholarship that is out there and seeing the standards and norms of a journal area, and then that helps you become better writers and researchers as well. This page here in the slideshow will link out to the journal rankings. It's something that is not something to focus deeply upon, but as we know, is important for promotion and tenure cases. So you want to have an eye on the quality of the journal or journals that you are submitting to. And it doesn't mean they all have to be Q1 journals, but it's a way of sort of weeding through the layers. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment as well. Open access publishing is a way of making sure your scholarship is accessible by as many people as possible. We all know that that is not always possible to publish in an open access journal, and that things like open access or open access publication fees are another thing that we're dealing with when it comes to journals and publications. But I wanted to mention it and mention also that the library has tremendous resources around navigating this piece of the publishing landscape. There are practitioner-focused spaces where you can submit. One I always like to mention is the National Teaching and Learning Forum, not to be confused with the Irish National Teaching and Learning Forum, but this is a journal published by Wiley that accepts 1,000 to 1,500 word articles that don't have to be empirical. They can be reflections and thoughts around maybe a technique that you're using in your classroom, and a really nice way to start to get some of your scholarship and ideas out in a published format. There are conferences, which can also be hard to navigate at times, but this directory is a wonderful one that helps you sort of navigate through the possibilities of upcoming educational professional development opportunities. So let's now talk a little bit further about evaluating publication quality. There are predatory publishers out there, and there are not just in education. As you well know in your own disciplines, there are a wide range of journals, and with the importance of publishing, when it comes to promotion, there can be nefarious players in the space that are capitalizing on that. There's a great resource called Think, Check, Submit. This is a website that helps you identify trusted publishers for your research. If the publisher you're looking for is not in their database, they have rubrics and heuristics that you can go through to kind of evaluate whether or not a book publisher or a journal is one that has integrity that you can submit to. Additionally, they have a similar heuristic for conferences. Just as there's predatory publishers, there are predatory conferences as well. So you definitely want to think and check before you attend or submit to journals or conferences. One thing that has become very confusing is this article processing charge. Many well-established journals now are charging article processing charges that allow you to make your publications open and freely accessible. And it's not a pay to publish charge, which some predatory journals have. And again, this can be very, very confusing. And would definitely lean on the UCD library for help with this. We have amazing librarians that are 100% focused on this area. And while it is confusing, it's not impossible to navigate. But again, another thing that as we're talking in the space, we definitely need to keep in mind. So I thought I would end with a few tips and resources that might be helpful as you're wherever you are in the journey of publishing and thinking about scholarship of teaching and learning. It's an amazing chance for collaboration, and I mentioned this in the last video as well. It does not have to be a solitary endeavor, and if you're new to scholarship of teaching and learning publication, partnering with someone who has already worked in this space is a great way to get started. For example, a handful of years ago, I worked with some archaeologists when I was working at Michigan State University. They were doing a STEM camp for high school students. I had experience as an educational technologist and as an education professor working in this space. The archaeologists had expertise in archaeology. We worked together to create a study and evaluate a STEM camp that they had run. So think of the possibilities of partnering across the university or across different universities, for that matter, in different disciplines to help you along the way. Additionally, we have our librarians. I'll mention the UCD library many, many times. They are tremendous resources for us. We have a subject area librarian in education in particular that can help point you to education-related journals in your specific disciplines and also maybe even help connect you with other scholars who are in the area as well. We have a scholarly communications librarian that, again, we've got resources that are up on the library guides, but there's also frequent training opportunities as well. This is a fairly recent screenshot, but every trimester there are new opportunities for seminars and workshops through the library. The first one, as you can see here coming up, is open access publishing options and agreements. That's repeated throughout the semester, and this is a great one that helps navigate some of the trickiness around publishing. I have a few hacks to share with you that I like to call hacks. If you're new to the literature in your space, don't forget to use filters on searches and some of the advanced searching techniques. So let's take a look at Google Scholar for a moment. That's one place to start looking for scholarship. I just used a keyword here of post-digital online teaching. I had about 3 million results pop up, which can be quite overwhelming. But if you're looking for, say, newer scholarship, you can look at articles that have just come out this year, so that reduces it to 20,000 results. On the right here, if you're searching from campus, the amazing thing, it will link out and show if we have access via UCD library. Additionally, if you find an article that you like, let's say I like this first one here, there are in Google Scholar some great filter searches here where you can see who cited this work. So that might lead you to others who are doing work in the same area. You can search for related articles, and this really helps to reduce that sort of overwhelmingness of the initial keyword search. Another option for searching is the one search on the UCD library. So if we do a search there, we'll have a lot of results that will pop up. And again, you can use all of these different filters on the left-hand side. If you just want to look at, let's say, journal articles, you can reduce your searches that way. Just like in Google Scholar, you can look for more recent, or if you want to go back historically and look 10 years ago, you can do that as well. The subject terms are really helpful as well. So if you're looking for maybe a specific discipline, engineering, let's say, or education, or foreign language teaching, you name it, that really helps to filter things down as well. So as you're searching, keep remembering that filters are your best friend when it comes to doing literature reviews in the SoTL space. A little bit more around connecting with communities. We have the UCD Teaching and Learning community where you can post and discuss topics related to anything teaching and learning at UCD. There's over 500 members of faculty and staff there right now and growing, and it's a great place to find others on campus to connect with. There's also the Center for the Study of Higher Education, which is open to anyone to join. The slideshow here will link you out to that. There are monthly webinars around scholarship of teaching and learning subjects, so it's a really nice community to become a part of. As I mentioned earlier, nationally here, we have the National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education, which is a national entity. They will have a couple times a year funding opportunities, awards, ways of looking at your teaching and learning, and specifically here in Ireland. And there are lots of resources and case studies on their website as well, which can serve as resources. Twice a year is the Ireland International Conference on Education. This is, if you're here in Ireland, a local way of sort of connecting with a community of scholars across the country and beyond that are looking at teaching and learning. So it's a twice a year opportunity. Internationally, there is the International Society for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. They have an annual conference. They also have a journal, many publications. So if you're looking to elevate beyond the island here, this is another community that you can connect with. So as I mentioned earlier, please don't hesitate to email, reach out if you have questions. Teaching and Learning will also be holding a series of workshops throughout the academic year to help take these ideas further, where you'll come to the workshop with some ideas already started, and we'll work together in peer groups to further your ideas and studies, do peer review, work together to really shape your scholarship ideas around teaching and learning forward. So thank you for your time and attention, and good luck on your journey.